And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. It started. Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube on a day where we see a huge drop in benchmark Treasury yields, a 10% drop in benchmark oil prices, and a record-setting day for U.S. equities.
Yeah, pretty amazing. What we're looking at, 5, I think, is it up days for the S&P 500, a weekly gain of maybe 4.5%, about 13 days up for the NASDAQ 100. So, yeah, quite a bounce back on all this optimism that this war between the U.S. and Iran is coming to an end. But again, stuff to happen maybe on the weekend or on Monday, so stay tuned. I'm just saying, it ain't over till it's over.
That's true.
To continue with that theme, I'll talk a little bit about what has happened to the bears over the last few days. Bears have covered $93 billion. Yeah. Not the sports. I'm not a big sports guy.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's football season. $93 billion worth of short positions across U.S. stocks so far this month. The Russell 3000 and the S&P jumping more than 9% over that time. Short covering, adding momentum to the rally. How much of the momentum, Katie, has been short covering? That's the question.
Tim, you read my mind. I was also thinking about the fact that you take a look at a Goldman Sachs basket of the most shorted stocks. It's jumped by more than 13% this week. So, you know, we've been batting around the question of how much of this is fundamental versus technical, and it looks like technicals at least has some element that it's playing here.
Well, we get the closing bells here in New York on what is going to be a record-setting day and, quite frankly, a phenomenal week, a phenomenal 3 weeks, if you will, here for U.S. equity markets, which have not only clawed back all of the losses from the war in Iran, but have actually surpassed where we were at those pre-war levels. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on the day adds almost 900 points, or about 1.8%. But let's take a look at the S&P 500. It closes at 7,126 and change, up 85 points, or 1.2%. At a record high. The NASDAQ Composite and the NASDAQ 100 each up about 1.5% to record highs. The Russell 2000, that's going to close up 57 points, or 2.1%. At a record high. And I do just want to point out quickly, we're also seeing Dow Transport surge 3% on the day to a record high.
Wow, right? Just, you know, pick your asset class, certainly among equities. We're just, and indices, you're really seeing some outperformance in a big way, the optimism. Having said that, Katie, yeah, no surprise, 395 names in the S&P 500 higher on this Friday, 106 to the downside, 2 unchanged.
Yeah, it feels like breadth has been improving this entire week. And certainly when you take a look at the circle today, there's a lot of green on that screen. Consumer discretionary was your big winner when it comes to a percent basis, higher by nearly 2%. Industrials, tech, also higher by more than 1%. In terms of what didn't participate, energy, as you might expect, that sector down about 3% as we watch crude oil just plummet here. And utilities also off by about 0.4%, Carol.
Yeah, energy's still having a pretty good year, right?
Yeah, it's all right.
We're not going to feel too sorry yet. Hey, I had a lot to choose from when it comes
Carol
to...
always takes the contrarian view. I like that about you. Yeah.
Drives my husband crazy, but I go there.
Really? You don't say.
Yeah, it's shocking, right? All right, so let's go to some of the individual gainers. Katie just mentioned consumer discretionary, but no surprise to see things like the cruise lines, the airlines really outperforming. Certainly some of that has to do with energy prices backing off, and you think about fuel, certainly for jet fuel, if you will. We've seen them rise amid this U.S. war in Iran. So let's just go through some of them. Royal Caribbean, guys, #1 gainer in the S&P 500, up more than 7%. Carnival also riding higher, up about 7% here. United was your #2 gainer in the S&P 500, a gain of 7%. Check out the S&P 500 Airlines Index. 5%, almost 5% to the upside. All 9 names in that index are higher in today's session. So we've really seen some outperformance there. Let's move on over to strategy. MSTR is the ticker there. Yep. Bitcoin goes up, so does strategy go up. So we saw Bitcoin going above $78,000 at one point, finishing the day around $77,000 and change. But we did see strategy, I believe it was the #1 gainer. Let me just pull it up here in the NASDAQ 100. As I mentioned, that stock, yep, #1 gainer, up almost 12% in today's session. So yeah, understand why that one moved to the upside. And here's something different, but I feel like it plays into a wider theme that we've been talking about with this administration and certainly certainly over the last few months and last year. And that is a company called Critical Metals. CRML is the ticker. It's about a $1.6 billion market cap as of today, thanks to a big bump to the upside, up about 35% in today's trade. Company increasing its stake in the Tambrise rare earth deposit in Greenland. Yeah. Let's see if we get back to that story.
Okay.
They're increasing their...
Can we just kind of bask in the glory of the ceasefire in Iran before we move on to the next conflict?
That's what kind of caught me when I read this one. Increasing their stake to 92.5% from 42%. So they're basically consolidating ownership of this asset that the firm hopes will serve as a U.S. aligned supply chain. Stock now up about 82% year to date. I will point out 31% of the float is short, but nonetheless, easily some outperformance there on that.
Quiz, Carol Massar. The best performing stock in the S&P 500 this week.
Was it Birds?
No.
That's
in the S&P 500?
Sorry.
It was Robinhood.
Oh,
nice
Robinhood.
try.
Oh, yeah.
Not really a nice try, but nice something.
You know what?
I mean,
I was doing so well.
You were.
Okay.
All came undone.
The worst performer today in the S&P 500 was Netflix. Let's start there. 24 hours ago, we were dissecting these numbers. Investors had a chance to really let them digest today, and they sent shares of Netflix down by 9.7%. The worst day going back to October of 2025. In fact, at one point, it was the worst going back to April of 2022. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
When 35% when Netflix fell after reporting the loss of a couple 100,000 subscribers 3 years ago.
That.
I'm going to say I kind of forgot that it was that bad.
4 years ago?
No, really?
That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, how things have changed. The company forecasts earnings per share of 78 cents and revenue in the $12.57 billion range. In the 3 months ending in June, that was less than Wall Street estimates. Also, Reed Hastings stepping down from the board after 29 years at the company. But let's get to some other stocks, too, on the move. Energy stocks took a hit today. The State Street Energy Select Sector ETF, I picked the whole ETF because every energy name was down. That fell by 2.8%. This because Brent crude futures fell more than 10% today, sending energy stocks lower. Also, because of less volatility, this is a really interesting one. CME Group fell today. You also saw shares of Intercontinental Exchange, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange. Tradeweb Markets also fell. Easing tensions in the Middle East could reduce market volatility. That drives trading activity. CME shares fell 2.9%. And finally, Figma. We do not forget about AI and the effect of AI on these stocks. Figma fell 6.9%. Anthropic launched Claude Design. It's a product that lets users collaborate with Claude to create visual work such as prototypes, slides, and one-pagers. Claude Design is powered by Claude Opus 4.7. Romaine, it's going to roll out to users gradually throughout the day.
Let's check in on yields because, of course, that was a big component of the story for the moves that we saw in equities. Equities rallying for a third straight week in yields, dropping for a third straight week on the day. That's what you're looking at here, an almost near parallel shift downward in the curve, down about 8 basis points on the 2-year yield and 7 basis points on your benchmark 10-year yield. All
right, guys, let's get to some stories that are certainly on our radar. We've got I think everybody's been kind of talking about this week. Train tickets for the FIFA World Cup will cost $150 per round-trip train ticket. The New York, New Jersey Host Committee and New Jersey Transit.
I'm so confused by this. Now, you know I don't go to New Jersey, but you're from New Jersey. Katie's from New Jersey. But I mean,
I've actually heard otherwise. But continue.
But just to be clear, I mean, this is basically on a normal day, like a $13 ticket.
Yes.
And they're raising it to $100-something. They can just do that?
It's surge pricing.
Surge pricing.
Effectively.
So can you, like the people that aren't going to the World Cup, they also have to pay this?
Well, I don't know if they're going to get to go anywhere because regular commuters from Penn Station into New Jersey will actually be suspended for 4 hours before the match.
Wow.
So they say work from home on days when there are matches. I guess my question
is... So we should mark down the days of the World Cup and just assume that nobody's coming into the office.
Charlie Pellet made the good point to me when we were talking about this earlier. He's a huge fan of mass transit. Like there have been He's
the voice of mass transit.
Super Bowls. He's the voice of mass transit. You're right. Super Bowls, at these stadiums before, and they've been able to handle the capacity. So what's so different about the World Cup? I don't know.
That's a good question.
$150.
You mentioned the stadium, though. Do you want to talk about it? Because I find this a little
bit... Stadium? I can't wait to go to MetLife Stadium.
That's what you would think. I've been every version of myself at MetLife Stadium.
We're never coming to New Jersey. We're not letting you in, by the way.
Well,
I'm okay.
Sorry, Katie.
First of all, it's not MetLife anymore, at least when it comes to the World Cup. It's going to be called the New York, New Jersey Stadium, which is insane because it's in New Jersey. It should be the New Jersey-New York Stadium. That would make the most sense.
Or maybe just the New Jersey Stadium.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
You know, there are sports teams, I'm told, that play at some of these stadiums that are called the New York something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the New York Giants, the New York
Jets?
Jets.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And they play in New Jersy.
Yeah. It's funny
Did
that
you know that,
we just
Romaine?
pretend.
Yeah, well, as you know, Tim, I stay away from New Jersey. But I am curious, though, about this. Is FIFA just holding out to get another branding here? Because that's a very generic name. I mean, no shade on New York, New Jersey,
New
but
Jersey
I mean,
Stadium.
like they couldn't come up with something creative, like
They couldn't have.
soccer ball stadium. I don't know.
I just don't know, but at
Pele
least
Arena,
at least for now,
Nice.
or at least for these games, it'll be the New York, New Jersey
the
Stadium.
Hand of God Dome.
Guess we gotta go.
Hey,
Katie, what's up with him today?
there's no off position.
What is up
on
with
the
him? Can you
Genius
unplug him, please, now?
No.
Not until 5 p.m. I need him.